All right. Hello and welcome everybody back to our living room. We are still not in the gym.
Nope. Still having cool metal put up over the spray foam.
Yes. And hopefully everything is going as planned. We have yet to talk with our building manager as to how it's going. From our perspective, it seems like it's going a little slow. So hopefully that will pick itself up a little bit. We will be back in the gym doing fun,
fingers crossed,
workout stuff in the gym.
Yes.
Sometime soon.
Sometime soon.
So.
But today.
Yes. With that mentioned, with that said, we are using this to bring in some new interesting topics, new fun stuff. Today is an interesting stream. It is not a workout stream.
Nope.
It's not a workout video.
It's a brain workout video.
It's a brain workout video. Think of this almost like a live podcast.
Yeah.
But it's going to be really cool having the live podcast because it's one that you can literally be a part of by chatting and communicating with us, and you can input your own thoughts into the podcast. And the discussion that we're talking about today is play and the power of it and what you can do with it, how it relates to fitness, or how we've chosen to relate it to fitness and what that might mean. Cool things like being able to say, David, thank you for joining into the stream. Jens, thank you so much as well. And as you have thoughts,
I showered. That's the explanation, Jens.
As you have thoughts, you can send them to us through chat and let us know. Today we're talking about something that is very true to our heart, and it is the main emphasis as to why we even exist in the first place. And so sometimes it seems, almost from our perspective, it seems like, why are we talking about this? But I think that when it comes down to it, there is so much that kind of just gets assumed or unsaid, or as things progress, as people grow, as our philosophies evolve and adapt and eventually mature and change, sometimes we kind of forget exactly what we mean when we say certain things, or the connotation gets lost a little bit, or everything else that's in between. So maybe you have your own understanding as to what play means when it comes to us as an establishment or a business, or just what play means in general to you. And this is going to be a fun little discussion that we can have together. But really what we wanted to go into today is exactly what it means for us when we relate play into the fitness mentality, and how you can use it appropriately to benefit your life, as opposed, or basically just understanding what we mean by play. And yeah, so with that said, how are we relating this to our gym's existence? Really, when it comes down to it, we saw in our modern society, in our world around us, more often than not, people have a fundamental misunderstanding or a kind of broken relationship between their overall experience of life and fitness. Fitness almost seems like this completely separate thing, separate from modern day life, separate from the life that we know, that we experience 24 hours a day, or I guess let's say like 15 hours a day, because people do move around and do fun stuff, but the overall experience of fitness is generally not one that is satisfying, fulfilling, or fun for a lot of people. This is overly generalized, but we're doing our best to kind of talk about this broad subject in as seamless as a way as we possibly can. We saw parkour as one of the most useful tools, if not the most useful tool, at helping you become a more holistic version of yourself. What does that mean? Before we talk about that, we want to dive into some definition of terms for a moment. So we're going to be discussing a lot. We're going to be talking, obviously, we are a parkour business. We are a parkour gym. We're a parkour community. We are a community of movers and traceurs. What do we mean by parkour?
That it's the powerful, playful movement discipline. It's
Yes.
a training discipline.
Absolutely. It is a training discipline. It is a method of training using the human body and its capacities to enhance our capacities. We are training our jumping abilities. We're challenging our climbing ability, our, I don't know, swinging, running ability, our crawling ability, all sorts of abilities. And we train those movements to get better at those movements. That's parkour.
So that's parkour. What's natural movement?
Natural movement is an actual historical, when we say it, we don't mean the conceptual nature of like
Natural
movement.
movements.
Natural movement, we're relating to La Méthode Naturelle from George Hebert, the French Marine who basically helped to solidify and unify and create this whole system, which is called the natural movement. We're going to be talking a lot about George Hebert. We're going to be talking about how that related to parkour and its inception. But when we say natural method, it's not just the concept of natural movements, it's that systematic approach to identifying and conceptualizing what it actually means to train natural movements.
So we're going to dive a lot into what play is and different forms of play and how that can be accomplished. But what we wanted to define it as, it's the sense of joy derived from an action. And without it, it's just work.
Yes. And work is going to be also a fundamental idea, because when you perform actions, you are performing work. Work is being done. You are moving stuff with your human body, and that in and of itself is the action. You are doing some form of work. Everything relates back to that. Some action is being done. You're manipulating other things in the world or yourself. Mm-hmm. And then we get into basically just how we're going to relate all this back down together, how we're going to piece it together. And ultimately, we want people to understand that there is if you were to take a Venn diagram between La Méthode Naturelle and parkour, you're kind of pretty much just going to get a circle. The concepts and philosophies really overlap so much so there's really no outlier to that. Although if you were to like take parkour is a more urban sense of the natural method, taking things like railings into account and concrete walls and concrete barriers and everything else, and then deriving movements based on that and how to get yourself around and navigate this urban environment. La Méthode Naturelle was really identified and established with the understanding of the world that exists outside and the organic shapes that come into play through that. And so, yeah.
And then there's one other term that will come up a lot and that we were talking a lot about, the idea of this like sliding scale between play and survival.
Yeah. Play and survival. And really, that was essentially the whole basis for the natural method. And so that we can just go right on in and dive in. If you are unaware as to the natural method, you can look up a guy named George Hebert. George Hebert is one of the most influential people in the development of parkour, and we'll explain why. George Hebert is a historical figure from the early 1900s. He was a French Marine that spent some time traveling all around different parts of the world and started to identify and understand that him coming from a militaristic training style and understanding that his training methods that he was brought up with was a more modern approach, as in they would break down movements from the whole generic movement into very simple forms. Think of a push-up as opposed to crawling, or as opposed to supporting your body or anything else. Taking one action of the human body, applying it through repetition. This might seem familiar for you. And that is how to train the athletic nature of a human. Push-ups, sit-ups, chin-ups, and everything else that's in between that you might see every single day. Well, maybe not in current days, But eventually, when you go back to a regular fitness establishment, you're going to see a bunch of machines. And on those machines, humans perform simple work-related tasks. What work is actually being done, we don't think of it as work because really nothing's being done except calorie burning.
Right.
You are burning calories. You're doing stuff that has an effect on your body, as we've talked about in the past, that causes it to adapt. But the work that we're talking about and what George Hebert noticed is that the indigenous tribes and people that he saw, typically he noticed this a lot in African tribes, they were way more prepared for the stressors of life than his military servicemen were.
That were training specifically for that.
And or even just athletes in general. It's like athletes train professionally to be fit individuals, yet these indigenous people are way more fit without even trying, without even really knowing that that's what's happening. And so what he
I've been trying to find a good time to interrupt. There's some snark. You got to read it because I'm not going to say it out loud. Jens is silly. You're silly, Jens.
Jens is silly. Right.
Move on.
Move on. However, what he basically
Probably the
derived.
indigenous people did not get all the alcohol.
Oh God, yeah. All right. You're very astute, Jens.
Yeah.
But essentially, there he derived. I don't remember the actual person's name that he derived. He utilized 10 concepts or 10 capacities of the human body. He didn't create them. No. He took them from a different person. I don't remember their name right now.
He looked at the guy and was like, yeah, that's right.
That's right.
And then he said, this is what I'm going to promote too.
This is exactly what I've seen. But this relates all the way back to the 1500s, and it established 10 capacities of the human body.
Running.
Jumping.
Swimming.
Climbing. Carrying or throwing.
Lifting.
I think was lifting or carrying. Throwing was a different one.
Crawling. I don't know if I said that already.
Uh-oh.
We should have had this listed. We do have it listed.
Self-defense.
Self-defense was one. We're still missing two.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. I don't think
you had it. It was right there.
Oh. Balance.
Oh, balance. What did we forget? Do we see? Oh, walking. Duh.
That's the 10.
Walking, running, quadrupedal movement or crawling, climbing, jumping, balance, lifting and carrying, throwing, self-defense,
and swimming. And we like to say all of them but swimming we practice in the gym.
That's
although
true.
you could apply parkour training to swimming as well.
It would be very challenging to have.
Expensive.
Yeah, to put a swimming pool in the parkour gym.
Look at that. There was something I saw a post of like Olympic swimmers tying themselves to bungees and like practicing in kiddie pools because that's very inventive.
That is very inventive. That's pretty incredible. I mean, you do what you have to do. As an Olympic athlete, you were prepared to like compete in the top echelon competition this year, and then it just all got taken away.
He says decathlon.
Yeah. What about yes, cool. Decathlon. That's
we
like
would be doing
the 10 thing. Don't you do shooting though in the decathlon?
Probably.
Or is that
different
the
skills?
biathlon? Or am I getting my athlons confused? I don't know my athlons.
Either way, back to George Hebert.
Back to George Hebert. So from that, we start to understand that these capacities were derived for very real reasons. And that very real reason is the understanding of survival. Survival is a natural instinct. It is a very powerful
motivator
in a human being.
Yes.
It might be the most powerful motivator in the human being. Survival is so important. It's something that is deeply ingrained in all of us that we want to be able to survive. When you have that instinctual want and willingness to survive, you can pretty much do anything, or you will do anything in order to make survival more of a reality. That is what it is. Survival has no relationship to joy. As in, you need to do this or survival becomes questionable. You need to do this work or you need to do these actions in order to survive. And when you have next to nothing, as in you have a society that has no machinery, manufacturing, or anything that we might consider in our modern everyday experience, you consider what some humans on the planet still sort of emulate, those indigenous peoples out in the world. They still experience life very similar to how we experienced as we were evolving and becoming of who we are as a species. And you are presented with very real stressors in your environment. You need to be able to walk distances, run when you need to. You need to be able to lift and carry stuff. Life is almost questionable, or survival in life is questionable if you don't have those capacities. And so in the process of doing that work, carrying stuff from one place to another in order to gather things together, walking long distances to go find stuff or do anything, or go to a neighboring tribe, I don't know, whatever you want to make up. You can be creative with your own imagination. But all of those are tasks that need to happen. They're not necessarily like, I want to go on a 10-mile walk today, versus I have no choice.
I must go gather.
I must go gather.
And it will take me that long to gather.
I need to go do this.
Yeah.
Or you could say in the original marathon, they needed to get communication to somebody 26 miles away, and it had to happen quick, and that guy ran, I don't remember his name, that guy ran 26 miles in order to communicate and relay that information. It had to happen, and he was tasked with it and made it work.
So Jens brings up an interesting point that loops into, because we should briefly talk about how parkour, like you're about to transition into now parkour,
yeah,
but to kind of connect some dots, Jens is talking about game show in Germany where teams from different countries competed, and they like go do these obstacle courses that he's essentially describing this to Sosuke, and then eventually, what's the Bike TV?
What is it called? What is it called? Wipeout. No, not Wipeout.
That's one of them.
That's one of them. Wipeout is one of them.
That was later. Oh man.
Oh no, I forget what it's called. Wipeout is one of them though.
Regardless, so this idea of obstacle coursing and like trying to do that sort of thing is involved in the backstory of parkour.
Most Extreme Elimination Challenge.
That was it.
Don't get eliminated.
Also, Joel's here and says he can't talk.
Fine, be that way.
Don't know what that means.
Yeah,
that's okay.
We didn't want to hear you anyway.
He's a listener only.
American Gladiators. That's a fun one too. These are very much things that don't need to happen.
Are you forgetting to take these off?
No.
You're monitoring.
I'm monitoring.
Perfect. Just double checking.
Just in case. Just in case. You never know. We get pinged. Gotta be on the lookout.
We're ready.
Yeah.
So talk to us about how George Hebert into natural method, and then now it comes in.
Yeah. So basically, from there, George Hebert became a very well-known, prominent figure in French culture and French society. A lot of the systems and organizations in place through the French state started to adopt his practices and started to implement them into the military, into firefighter training. A lot of schools started to take it on as well to help train.
This new concept of how to train in this natural method.
Yeah, sports complex started to take it on as well. And actually, George Hebert was one of like the early creators of the obstacle course. He like literally conceptualized and said, like, instead of just kind of haphazardly coming across this stuff in everyday life, we could try to put it all together in a more outlined, cohesive path and have our athletes or students or what have you run through that. And that was the concept of the obstacle course. And I mean, to this day, like, it hasn't really changed that much, and it's kind of amazing.
Except some of them avoid swimming.
That's true. But anyway, so from there, how does this relate into parkour? This relates into parkour in the sense of, because this was adopted through French systems and it started to be adopted through the firefighter training started to adopt the natural method and started to train in these ways and train out in obstacle courses. That came into play with a guy named Raymond Bell. Raymond Bell just so happened to be the father of David Bell, who is one of the original founders of parkour, the parkour that we know today and that we practice. He's one of the founders of it. David Bell learned the natural method from his dad, who learned it during the Vietnam War as a firefighter in the Vietnam War. And he took that and basically, I don't want to say branched off, but essentially forked it to be his own thing.
He adopted the method and was influenced by it.
With his childhood friends in Nice in France. And boom.
David says, yay, another David.
Yay, another David. And that's how we basically come to be today. But a lot of the philosophy behind parkour is very similar, if not taken from the natural method. It is even like being strong to be useful. That is a natural method philosophy. And a lot of that relates back to, like, there was a fun story with George Hebert literally being witness to a volcanic eruption when he was out just on his travels and had to coordinate an emergency rescue of 700 people. And from that, he realized how important it is to have all these capacities, because you never know when you need to use them. And if you are only a soccer player, if you are so good at cardiovascular running and everything else, that's wonderful until a moment comes.
A log.
Yeah, or there's a car accident and you can't, like, get this person free, but you could definitely run to go get assistance if you need to, like, your utility has changed.
Right.
You are no longer useful in this very specific instance.
Unknown instance.
Yeah.
Unanticipated instance.
And whether or not that's important is completely independent of this. Like, obviously you can take that and say, well, how likely am I to be in that scenario? And so it's not necessarily important for me. We're going to get into that.
And that's not what we're trying to say. We're not trying to say one is better than the other and that there's reasons why you might choose different adaptations, and which is what we completely went into on our last discussion-based session.
Right. And so from that, we can kind of start to help in a very, we're kind of watering down everything just for the sake of simplicity with this thought discussion that we're having here.
I was so confused where Jens is saying kicking them usually is not productive. Like, when did I say to kick somebody? I said to run away. He goes, oh, because they're a soccer player kicking them. Ay. Yeah.
It's too quick for me. Too much. It's going right over my head. But yeah, so in a very simple, watered down way, trying not to hurt anybody's feelings, we can start to understand and identify the natural method is very much utilitarian and work based, of being able to operate under all of these basic human capacities for when you need them. That is what it is. We can start to understand parkour as being a little bit more of that playful instinct of bringing joy, want, and willingness to a certain extent into it. Can you do both or have both of those in each discipline?
Yes.
Yes. there are definitely reasons why you would only do parkour for utilitarian reasons. That can absolutely still be an experience that you choose to have.
So the goal of the discussion is not to define or to like pigeonhole specific disciplines, whatever they may be, and to like create pocket of informations for them. It's more that this discussion that there's this sliding scale of play versus survival or work.
Yeah.
And that it was one based upon the individual, and then what makes that the case. And so talking a little bit about motivation and intention.
And so for what we've described and talked about up until this point has pretty much only been with the concept of adults making adult decisions, or an adult relaying or having some sort of control over a kid. For instance, school systems taking up the natural method and
deciding that is worthy of implementation in the education of their youth.
Right. And really kind of a kid not necessarily having much choice in the matter.
But they do have choice with the amount of intention they put into it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the point. So that all of these items have this sliding scale of not just achievement in like that you want to get to a certain point, but what you're able to accomplish or what you choose to accomplish. So somebody that has less intention and motivation is not going to accomplish what somebody that has quite a lot. And then even so, what are you accomplishing? All of those items have, specific adaptations or interests. And that all of those are Venn diagrams that all overlap.
Yeah. So if we take the adult mature brain out of this whole discussion and we go back to a child's experience, how does a child know to train the natural method?
Right.
Or how does a child know to do stuff that helps them grow and prosper and be ready to handle these capacities that will eventually be required of them when they're an adult? And that goes into play.
Yeah. And this idea that play exists and that it is super intrinsic, and you see that, and if we're talking about like today's day and age, you take an adult and you put them into our gym and say, okay, I want you to get over this vault box in 50 different ways. Go. And they will peter out. They will try, maybe. Most adults will just sit there and be like, I don't want to do anything wrong. I don't want to feel embarrassed. So that's neither here nor there. You take a kid and you go to do that, they get to 100 ways. Some of them may be ridiculous. Some of them may be sort of duplicates because they're kid brains, as we said. But still, they will accomplish that task and they will enjoy doing it. And this idea of like natural exploration and this playful joy that's derivative of just that experience is something that we all can have, but that we're trying to illustrate that it's naturally, intrinsically found in children and is typically lost by adulthood.
And this is where, as our concept and understanding of fitness really tries to pull back that childhood instinct of play and fitness, and where does play happen? Play happens typically on playgrounds, but play can happen anywhere.
All the time.
It happens all the time.
And with anything. We're not saying play is physical. So play is like a construct, a concept. And so an individual could be very playful in their approach to numbers. Somebody who has like crazy math brain, who's not me, who just can dissect something and just be so intrigued by it and like dive in. That is their playful nature for that interest. And so they have like an intrinsic motivation to go after that. It doesn't necessarily mean that play equals physicality. That's not what we're saying.
Correct. But really, when it comes down to it, play is an experience. Play isn't necessarily an action.
There you go.
An action happens for a very particular reason. Play is an experience. And that experience is relating directly back in a very like literal scientific sense to a hormone release. You are experiencing play because play is enjoyment of stuff, and that is relating back to
Deriving joy.
You're like, your body is surging with endorphins for whatever reason. You are enjoying what's happening.
Hormones,
yes.
Drugs.
Essentially,
it is a drug.
It is essentially a drug. Your body, you are doing something that causes a hormonal release in your body that can be an amazing thing. It can also be abused, and we'll talk about that a little bit down the road.
Jens is already getting to where we're going. Play and learning are naturally correlated.
Well, I mean, he's a very smart person, so
he's got a playful mind. We know that.
Right. And so the whole motivation when it comes to kids doesn't necessarily require that necessity to be done. It's not that a kid needs to sprint in order to survive. That's what parents are for. Right?
Hopefully.
That is the responsibility of a parent. A kid still has a survival instinct, obviously, but in a normal functioning environment, the parents that brought this child, immature brain into the world are doing whatever they can to allow for this youngster to, enjoy it and not have this sense of overwhelming burden of just like, life is pain and life is terrible and we just have to do everything that isn't fun in order to survive. And so a kid's playful instinct is that moment of looking at another youngster and saying, I bet I can beat you to that tree. And then the kids are like, you're cheating, or I don't know, whatever kids come up with. But that in and of itself is that playful mentality. Do those kids need to sprint? No. There's not something that's chasing them or threatening their life, but that one moment of that just wonderfully amazing momentary experience of them going, I wonder if I can beat you there. I wonder if I'm faster than you, or I wonder if I can just get there super quick, or I just want to run. That moment is so important developmentally in a child. And when you lose it, you are effectively stripping out all of the enjoyment that comes from work. And that's a shame. Work doesn't need to only be utility. Work can be amazing and joyful.
It's because it was 7 minutes ago. Kyler's given some Facebook chat love.
Given some knowledge. Maybe knowledge? Is he dropping knowledge?
Not sure if this has been touched on, but does parkour as competition fit anywhere into the philosophy of the natural method? So I don't know where this comment came in, where you came in, but I think that we kind of touched on that, talking about like, okay, now this is where obstacle course concept came into play.
Yes.
And that not that I don't want to, we can explore this freely. The intention of this conversation was not to go into like definition of what is parkour, because we could get so muddy with that and people have so many different opinions, which we'll sort of touch on later.
And Nicole just showered. She doesn't need to get muddy right now.
Okay. Thank you. But the parkour as competition, even that statement in and of itself is defining that is a path choice that a practitioner can choose, and whether or not it is the only definition choice available to the discipline, whether or not it's more or less valued, all of that. I think the concept is that it is based on the individual, and the individual is going to either, as an adult, choose adaptations that they prefer, choose intentions on what they want to achieve, and that will then dictate the training that should be done. More of the conversation that we're interested in is, well, how do you even get to that point, and how do you maintain that? So somebody who is really is this getting too ahead?
No.
It's fine. So somebody getting really intrinsically motivated to train and work and do and even if it's playful, even if it's all these things, in order to accomplish the task that they deem valuable, which maybe is parkour as competition, that, I lost my train of thought.
Uh-oh.
Because I was trying to make sure to read what he wrote. if they have the intention of accomplishing that goal and they're intrinsically motivated, that's great. But there are people out there that are not. And so whether or not, what am I trying to say? So there's a difference between being intrinsically motivated and extrinsically motivated, and what you put weight in. And I'm not going to say anything positive or negative about any choice. Everybody's choice is individual. And for example, if you want to be a bodybuilder and then therefore you have to make adaptations and choices based on that achievement, versus you want to excel at a parkour's competition, or you want to excel to be able to do push-ups into your 80s, or you want, whatever your choice is, there's going to be a path that defines success, and that optimizes success. And so what we're interested in exploring is how play versus work comes into that, and if there's like a definite that one without or with the other is better. Mm-hmm. In achieving those eventual goals. So more often than not, those more extreme goals are going to be in existence for individuals that already have an intrinsic motivation. But where does that motivation come from? And what makes it successful?
Yeah. And what we mean with this stream when we say the power of play being that natural instinct is extremely motivating. It's motivating in a number of different ways, but that power goes both ways. And so understanding when to utilize it in order to help motivate you to do maybe something that you don't necessarily want to do, approaching it from a different mindset of not just I need to do this, I have to do this, but I don't want to. Figuring out how to play around with that work that you need to get done, that is bringing it in, using it as a tool to help you do something and accomplish a task when it needs to be done, and not just, and feeling all sullen and down on life. At the same time, only a pursuit of play typically does not yield perfect, holistic success.
So, for example, there are two extremes that you could point to for that. So, one of them, really sliding scale towards play. Nothing against video games. We play lots of video games, okay? Just stating that ahead of time. If you are a playful person and you really like role-playing and diving into like these different worlds and having your character and going through and playing video games, that's great. And there's a lot of dopamine responses there. There's a lot of, okay, yeah. Excellent.
Enjoyment.
A lot of enjoyment.
Wow.
However,
incredible.
It's not doing anything for you physically that's helping you be healthy to not have a heart attack and to live into old age. So that's an excessive, that's not good. And then something else could be said just the same. If you are like so driven on this media consumption, the fitness industry is just terrible at like, oh, if you want to be able to eat that cookie later, you better go get some 30 push-ups done.
I hate that.
Right. So that's like an opposite extreme that obviously has a lot of inherent problems, and whether or not we can talk about social or physical or mostly mental and psychological, not great. It's because that sliding scale is not in balance.
Yes.
And so what we're trying to talk about here is that in order to, like, not to use the buzzword holistic, that it's not that parkour is the holistic training discipline that everybody should do, which is absolutely what we would say, but we're biased.
You should, though.
You should.
You should.
But
you need to.
But that it's not that there's only one way. It's that what is inherent in the discipline of parkour is that it has this really wonderful balance of play and survival and work. And so that you're able to accomplish all of those tasks. And so if you are not, you want like, well, I don't want to just do parkour as they said to do parkour. If you are motivated, in a particular way that you've not yet found the link on how to integrate that. So I feel like the word play even sometimes can not get a bad rap, but, well, that's the whole problem with society. We could get so deep into this. But still, if you have a task or a thing that you enjoy doing, you got to figure out how to incorporate that into your physicality.
Yes.
So that you can have that balance, that intrinsic motivation, but the survival work output.
Jens says play and learning are naturally correlated, and that is absolutely the case. If you don't, without play, without that enjoyment that comes from doing this stuff that helps the human being develop, it wouldn't necessarily be done. And that in and of itself is what we're trying to identify. The concept of play is different for everybody. For instance, one person might feel that same playful experience from manipulating numbers and seeing data on spreadsheets, maybe as it relates to their fitness. Maybe somebody is super analytical in their approach to fitness. They love going to the gym, charting all of their data, and then being able to graph it and visualize it and see it and everything else. And that to them is their vision of enjoyment.
And that's awesome.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Understanding what that playful instinct is and utilizing it to help benefit your life, that's what we're trying to get you to do. More often than not, we see as fitness professionals, as people that exist in this realm of industry, that marketers love to say that anything that is anywhere related to fitness you need to do because it's great for you. There are definitely reasons why one fitness endeavor might not inherently be great for you. But in understanding where those relationships are, or understanding like, sure, I might need to do that, but it's not fun, and understanding, how you can make it fun. That's what we're trying to sandwich together. We're trying to figure out that balance. How can we take something that we don't necessarily want to do, or something that is important for us to do, and make it fun in a way that helps us, while also understanding that only pursuing stuff that is fun is also leaving out the stuff that we need to do in order to be cohesive, wonderful, uniform people.
Yeah, it's just as detrimental. So like if you have a training session where you're playing and you're not pushing yourself, you don't have that intention set to accomplish the work that needs to be done to gain the benefits that you want to gain, did you actually accomplish anything good? Probably for your mental health, yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
But not necessarily fully.
And I think this also brings us to the we're sort of skirting the idea, so I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
Play can be a negative thing. Play can be, or the pursuit of too much play, as goes with the saying, too much of anything can be a bad thing. Too much play and not enough work can just as easily be bad for you. And we see this a lot because parkour is a physical activity. Climbing is a physical activity. It is something that you are doing. You are performing actions with your body, and it's also really fun. It's really fun having these challenges, or if you're a climber, having a problem on the wall, and it's just like, I
figure it out. I want to figure it out.
And you're going at it, going at it. It's so fun. And then you finally achieve it, and you get this wonderful dopamine rush, and oh my god, the endorphins. You're like, ha! I feel amazing, that kind of thing. And you don't necessarily interpret anymore what the level or volume of work you're doing on your body is. This is how a lot of people fall into injury in our sports. They're called chronic overuse injuries because parkour and climbing and some physical disciplines are so fun
and addictive
that you just keep
going.
Doing them.
Oh, just one more. Oh, just one more.
You were going to say something.
Oh, no, I don't remember. Keep going.
I'm sorry.
I think we're just converging on the same thought process.
Being able to pull yourself back into that mindset, take a step away, really contemplate and think about what exactly are you doing? Just because we say that parkour is one of the most important things and we believe that it is the best thing that you can do for your body doesn't mean that parkour all day, every day is inherently healthy.
I mean, as Michelle just mentioned, don't tear a pulley.
Don't tear a pulley.
Yeah. So that there's that balance that too much play without the intent. I think you just said that. I was reading. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. Without the intention of proper training and and approach the balance.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
And it's something that you need to understand both of these ends of the extreme to help you understand when you are spending too much time in play volume and doing that kind of stuff, and then trying to balance it out with that utility a little bit and figuring out how can I find this happy medium in order to be able to continue to do stuff that is fun and enjoyable.
I also didn't say hi. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Thanks for commenting.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's what we mean by the power of play.
Right.
It's a blessing. It's also a curse. You need to think about how you can add it into stuff that you don't want to do in order to get motivation.
There's two situations. Like, I feel like there are the individuals that won't do the thing that's good for them because they're not motivated to do it and they're stuck. Or the people that are doing the thing that's good for them so much so that it's now a problem.
Yes.
And that there's a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an important balance, and it's something that we want everybody that is a part of our gym or the community or other communities, just wherever you happen to be included, take a moment and really think about that. Do you need to add more play into your life experience because you're all work and no play? That's a sad existence. That's no good. But at the same time, are you only operating in the pursuit of play and not enough of that work that needs to be done and having a fruitless experience of life?
I do that.
Yeah, I kind of do that too sometimes.
I'm actively working to not do that.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
are.
So, and that's the thing, is like, okay, realizing it in yourself, which one you are, deciding on the best way to create intrinsic motivation to accomplish the task that's needed where you're lacking the balance, because everybody's lacking balance in a different way. Then, now that we've gotten all that figured out, you go back to the other discussion we had about, okay, so now I have goals because I know what I'm missing. So now I can discuss those are the adaptations I'm choosing. This is how I should get there. And now maybe, ideally, it's not so hard.
Right.
So it's like breaking that down instead of this big, looming, oh, I'm supposed to do this because, oh no, this is what I wanted to do. This is actually what I want to do. This is how I'm going to accomplish it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In our description for the live stream, we used a joke from Jerry Seinfeld. We referenced a joke from Jerry Seinfeld. We've been rewatching Seinfeld.
Oh, it's been fun.
It blows my mind.
The hygiene is terrible. Like right now, you watch it, it's disgusting.
What I was gonna say
Okay.
is that it blows my mind at how well it's aged.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like 90%. Very well.
Most of it is still very relevant and still insanely funny.
Yeah.
However, this one joke of Jerry Seinfeld's that we reference here in the description, it's kind of funny to me how that joke is only funny when you think of fitness in a like uniquely utilitarian mindset.
In the way that we don't think of fitness.
Right. and it comes back to like, what's the point of working out? And it's the experience of so many people that working out, you're just working out because somebody told you to work out.
So you got to get fit so you can do the workout was his joke. Yeah. And that's the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. What's the point? But it makes me think of people with Fitbits and you, because you suddenly have this little tool in your watch that you carry around with you, and it buzzes sometimes and it makes you happy, and it gives you that endorphin rush a little, like, it buzzed, it happened, and it's like, why are you walking 10,000 steps? Because Fitbit told you
that's healthy.
You need to walk 10,000 steps. It's healthy. And on top of that, you get feedback when you get 10,000 steps. It buzzes, and you're like, oh, and it has like little stuff that comes up on the screen for the LCD stuff,
Like
and you're like,
literally conditioning, operant conditioning.
and it's like, but as much as me as a fitness professional thinks, I hate that, or especially as like a parkour person, I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
I hate this.
It's so hard to keep up with my mom's Fitbit numbers. Good for your mom.
That's fantastic. But okay, so like at the same time, is walking a good marker or benchmark of a person's healthiness? No. However, is having a Fitbit and creating a system of play where you derive any amount of enjoyment. Maybe you hate going outside, you hate the outdoors, you hate seeing your neighbors because they're so whatever. I don't know. You should move. You should have neighbors where you're like, hey dude, what's going on? Hey, good to see you. Or whatever. But regardless, if you hate going outside and going for a walk, having anything that gives you or deriving some amount of joy from that utilitarian thing of getting 10,000 steps a day, and that motivates you to do it, fantastic.
Cool. Then it's serving its purpose. It's helping, making you more balanced.
Yes. Just don't go deluding yourself into thinking that if you only need to walk 10,000 steps in order to be a healthy human. As we're explaining, there are 10 capacities of the human body. Walking is one of them.
Right.
Running is only one of them.
Right.
Just doing those two things, you are missing out on so many other capacities that is the experience of a human. And trying to, or at least understanding that exists, and then figuring out ways of diversifying your movement experience in life. That's how you become the holistic, healthy sense of a human.
Bye, Ans.
Oh, you're leaving?
My wife is calling him for dinner. Enjoy.
Enjoy. Yeah. We're also coming up on an hour.
Yeah, I think that was good.
Yeah. Play is wonderful. It's something that we want to be an establishment that helps people derive some sense of enjoyment from moving their body. People don't move enough. We are providing a space eventually, not right now, sad face, but eventually we're providing an establishment, we're providing a space where humans in our community can come to diversify their movement experience, if for no other reason than because so much of our lives is not moving anymore. It's literally just walking and sitting, and maybe going for a jog or a bike ride on a treadmill at the fitness gym, or doing some work-related actions like rows and push-ups and chin-ups. There's a time and a place for that, but humans are made to move. We evolved from moving and having to do this stuff, having to walk to and from places, having to run when we need to, sometimes being able to swim in order to gather stuff or anything else. Self-defense is an experience of the human condition, and sometimes you need to be able to do all those different actions that incorporate all those other stuff. That in and of itself is something that isn't necessarily a part of parkour, but is still something that humans should be able to do. Understanding that all those things exist, we want to be that establishment that helps you diversify that stuff. At the same time, too much of our lives is all work, and too much of a person's fitness experience is just performing work for caloric gain, not like ingesting and gaining calories, for like just watching those numbers go out and seeing like, I'm doing this and look at how many calories I'm burning, and now I can eat those calories, yes, and derive joy, yes, and everything else that's in between. We want to help you derive a healthier sense of joy from movement. That's what we're trying to do. We can be an establishment for that.
With the power of play.
With the power of play. Yeah. And if it's something where you only come to the gym and you start to realize that you're kind of you're becoming addicted to that playfulness and it's like the worst thing for me as a fitness instructor, especially as a parkour instructor, like I don't want to be a drug dealer of endorphins. I don't just want to give somebody this satisfaction all the time of like,
or
yes.
do we? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, and like that's a challenge. That's hard because obviously the more people enjoy using our space, the better it is for our business. But that might not necessarily be what's good for you. And so having to help somebody find that healthy balance, it's a task, but it's one that we want to work with you on that, but also you should think about it yourself. Figure out what you are missing in your life experience and figure out ways of adding that in. Find that balance.
Yeah. So if you have ideas on what you'd like to see to help fill in those missing pieces while we're all doing the things that we're doing right now, let us know. If you want help like discussing and figuring out how to find your own intrinsic motivation, those are things that we care so much about and we're invested in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we are coming up on an hour. Thank you so much for joining us on this little thought discussion. Thank you for those of you that included some of your comments as well. Basically, all we want you to do is just take a moment and think about it a little bit. Add a little bit of intention into your everyday life experience and figure out where you're working, where you're playing, figure out whether or not those relate back to your fitness related goals, or just understanding whether or not those relate back into the healthy concept of a human. Trying to figure out where is that base, get your base in order, and from there you can specialize a little bit if that's something that is important to you.
Yeah. 'Cause it's not about the negativity of like, oh, I should be doing this and here's why, or I'm not doing this, or blah. Like it's just don't focus on that. Focus on what motivates you. Figure that out first. What's interesting, and then we can help put it into your fitness.
Use it as a tool.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, everybody. It's been wonderful to have you with us, and we will see you. I forget what we're doing on Thursday.
So here's the thing. We don't know. We do know.
Oh, that's right. Because obviously, the gym is still under construction.
We have a workout planned, strength, that's already written up. I have a photo. Right. I already put it on. It's going live.
Wow.
However,
you're on it.
I did. I'm on it. We did that. I did that one before this one because you were supposed to. Yeah. It's fine. So if we are in the gym because it's finished, that's the plan. Our backup plan is to do this in our backyard.
Yeah.
So we will do to the best of our ability, because with all of the live stream equipment and having space for both of us on camera, we would literally have to tear down our entire living room to make enough room and move a couch. No, not gonna do it. So we'll figure out how to do this out in the backyard with y'all, or we'll be in the gym, hopefully.
Yeah.
But strength circuit coming up Thursday.
All right, y'all.
Thanks for chatting.
Yeah.
Exploring.
It's been fun. And we will see you all.
Oh, we got a Kyler thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll talk to you after on Facebook, Kyler. Okay.
Cheers, everybody.